woke up not feeling 100%, and I had to decide whether I was going to wallow in that and spend the morning dilly-dallying, or I was going to get up and I was going to take the dog for my 4-mile walk. And I was like, that's the last thing I want to do, is go for a walk. My head wasn't in the right space. And then I just heard that little voice, get up, move it. And reluctantly, I took him for a 4-mile walk, and I feel much more refreshed and positive. And I feel like it's something that I need to adopt every single day, not just today. So I'm feeling good. Sometimes managing your own profile is not the best thing to do, because you can be a little bit too critical, and you might oversee, you might sidestep an opportunity thinking, I'm not right for that role, whereas your agent would be looking at it a little bit more subjectively. So I have considered moving to another agency, but at the same time, I honestly don't think I've got enough time to dedicate myself to an agent, because if they started putting me forward for work, I can't be entirely sure that I'm going to be available. DJW, the school, and the agency take up the majority of my time. Just because I only see people on a weekend doesn't mean I have Monday to Friday off. It's DJW is my life. And there are things that happen that you guys don't know about. Safeguarding issues, complaints, not necessarily about me or the organisation, but or one of my actors has been mistreated badly by a producer or whatever. So it's a continuous 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. So I don't have my own agent. I'm self-represented, but I am potentially looking at moving to another agent in a couple of years when I'm ready to dedicate my time to acting again. I had been working for several different companies in the lead up to me opening DJW. They were getting people work in theatre, television and film, but I was the person that was like coaching them. And every single, and I'm blowing my own horn here, but you did ask, every single student that I worked with used to always say to me how good I was at helping them understand themselves and how I helped them achieve a really good and positive mental attitude for their careers. And so I was like, hang on a minute, why don't I just do this on my own? And the rewards being seeing people do well as a result of the work that I did with somebody. I can't take credit for anybody's success, but it was me that really worked with that person for over 1.5 years to really develop and hone in on their skills. And I'm going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. But I'm going to jump. Imagine, I don't look at like things as like that's a big achievement and that's a small achievement. For me, I look at the amount of achievements that have all been thrown into the bucket of nuggets of treasure. So like I get someone a job on CBBC, and they've done about 4 or 5 episodes now. That's a little achievement. Now, I didn't actually get any thanks for that, and I got paid very, very little for 1 year's work. But for me, that's like a little nugget of achievement. I have definitely had more personally and spiritually and in my character. I've had more out of teaching than I have acting. I've always wanted to be an actor, but actually, I think I'm a way better teacher than I am an actor. Actually, is the truth. I wish that wasn't the case, but I feel like some of my friends have gone on to direct, some have gone on to act, some have gone on to produce. I've gone on to teach, and I feel teaching is where my passion now lie, but I still have that itch, the acting itch. And I think one day when the time is right, I will focus my attention on acting again. But I need to build the foundations of this company first, and make sure that we're all in a stronghold, and that it's watertight, actually, that everything I'm doing is watertight. What I found, actually, do you know, I'm going to give you a really lame story to explain it. I went shopping the other day, and the lady behind the checkout, I was like, I don't know how you do this every day. And she went, oh, I'm just used to it now. When there is no alternative, you don't really think about it. When you have to do something because there is no alternative, you don't really think. And when Maddie was born, I made a promise to her when she was in my arms for the very first time that I will never give up, and I will make her proud. And that is the single most biggest driver in my life. But I do wonder if Maddie wasn't around, I don't even know whether DJW would still be around. I don't know whether we'd have developed like we have. I think I'd have probably traveled again. Yeah, I think Maddie's probably the driving force behind DJW, actually. I didn't even think it was real until it came to my head. I'd have been even braver sooner. I'd waited too long. I spent like the majority of my early adult life thinking it was going to happen, and it didn't. And I there were people that I should have said, are you going to give me a job? Yes or no? I should have just been braver. I should have been a bit more forceful. I should have told people to hop it when they took advantage of me. This happened up until about a year and a half ago, and then Emma really made me cut the tie. People would have meetings with me, and they would absorb everything that I said. They'd go off and make a short film, but it was my idea. And this happened quite often. And then it came to a point where Emma said to me, you're not going to any more of the meetings because you don't even get a thank you at the end of it. And the whole point of me setting DJW up was to create my own catalogue, my own history book. But when I see it on my newsfeed, I go, hang on a minute, hang on, what's happened here? So I would have just been braver a long time ago. We spend our lives terrified about rejection, and we're worried that people are going to judge us, and let them judge because they're not living your life. I still do it. I still worry what people think. Like, I want to be remembered for somebody that really tried to help people. I want in 20 years' time, when you're married with children, to be sat there and you go, do you know, when I was 18, 19, there was this acting coach, and he was great because and then you reel off 10 things. I just want to be remembered for somebody that made a difference in a lot of people's lives. And that was the main reason that I became an actor. I've never been given the opportunity yet, I must add. I wanted to create characters and stories to influence and support people that are often misrepresented. I've never talked about which demographic, and I may never, because it's sort of my little hidden secret. But like, there are certain people out there that I feel need to be told that it's okay and not to worry. So then when I transferred those skills to become a teacher, my legacy now is to see you do that. So all of my students go off and build your monuments, of which I am welcome to visit. So if you go off and become super successful, you then send me a text message and say, oh, it's my birthday next week, I'd really love it if you were there. That to me is a legacy. And I get to see your beautiful monument, and I'm welcome at your table. That's a legacy for me. Watching my work back now is very different to what it was when I first started acting. Now I don't particularly enjoy watching it. I enjoy it for a very different reason. I'm super, super critical. but I don't let it affect me. I don't take it. I'd be very critical, but then I'm quite good at turning it off and going, okay, spend half an hour moaning about it or half an hour praising it. And then I go, right, now I've learned how not to do it in the future. There was a couple of things like when I watched Make Me Famous back that I went, oh, I just missed a beat there. But then arguably I could say once it's edited, the beat is out of my control. And so watching that back, it was an absolute pleasure and a real honor to have been in it. However, honestly, and this is me being as open and transparent as I can, I want a bigger role. I want a bigger scene. I want more dialogue. I want more. And so the critical eye says to me, it's not big enough. It's not good enough for that reason. But then I also remember any part in any reputable, financed, governed piece of work is fantastic. And I needed to remind myself of that. And I had to give myself a little kick. I had to give myself a little wake-up call because it's really negative. And I think for me, I never really wanted to be the lead. It's never been, it'd be nice. I'm not pretending I don't want to be the lead because of course I do. But it's never been my ambition to be the lead. It's always been my ambition to be memorable. Now, with all due respect, like, I don't think my acting was terrible, but I don't think it was memorable. I don't think anyone's going to go, what was that guy called who was in Make Me Famous? Wasn't he good? It was just a fleeting moment. And that's lovely. And I'm as I say, I'm very, very honoured that Peter offered me the role. It's amazing. But at the same time, I can't help but go, it's not really what I want to be doing as an actor. So I've set my bar quite high, but at the same time, I'm not doing enough to get the bigger roles. I'm not even submitting myself for work. So honestly, I don't even like to admit it. Redirected was my first proper, like, big gig where I was in Lithuania for a considerable amount of time, and I was tret like an actor should be tret. I had the time of my life making that film. But then, the negative to that is that it wasn't big enough for me. It wasn't even a memorable role. It was just like a sidekick to Vinny. So that, I would say, that's definitely been the highlight. But working with Benjamin B on Mordecai and Metroland were also two massive highlights, because I honestly believe there was a turning point for me when I started to work with Ben. He gave me license to play, and I was like, oh my God, that's what I want from a director. I want the director to say, right, let's get a safety take, and then for him to go, now let's play. That I had so much fun with Dan, because we were just playing and making each other laugh. And so I'd say Benjamin B and Redirected, I've probably had I got the most from. But working with Peter King, because I know what's coming with Peter. So I know that I've worked with him twice. So Peter King is definitely up there as well, for sure. I've been really, really lucky to not have a really bad experience on set or working with theatre. Teaching, I've had some incredible things happen, negative, where I have walked into the studio, set up, started my day, and then been presented with a massive safeguarding issue. And I've had to keep that in my mind and then carry on, because there's 20 kids waiting for me to teach them. The worst thing about a teaching day is when you get bad news at the beginning of the day and you've got 8 hours to try and keep the energy up, keep inspiring people. And there have been some things happen to some of my students that will stay with me, where I've not been able to sleep. I've been very unwell with stress, thinking about the safety of a student. And I've had to do police reports. I've had to do meetings with the governors of schools because a child is at risk. I would say until I became a DJW shooter, I'd never experienced proper stress. And I genuinely mean that. And then, you have that connection with the student and they come to class and someone will mention something in a scene and you just look at, I just check to make sure they're okay because it's a sensitive topic. And they look at me and they put their head down and I've got to reassure them, it's okay, don't worry. During the lockdown period, you will not believe the amount of problems I've had to deal with students that don't even attend the school anymore. And their parents have phoned me because they think I'm the only one that can get through to them. It's tough. And I would say arguably that's the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with, is the emotions that come with our students. On a good week, we have 80 students at DJW. That's on a good week. 80 people with 80 different problems. And even if you halve that, 40 of them are adults, 40 of them are children. The 40 children have two parents with two different opinions about a problem that is currently happening. Suddenly it just multiplies, and then an email gets sent, and then you have to reply, and then a phone call, and then there's another email, and then you've got the agency. And I would say that's I can't go into detail, but that's the worst thing I've ever had to endure. Safeguard, 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 safeguard. And then when you think you've done it, safeguard again. The one thing that I will never forget is turning up to my very first DJW class with a bit of paper with a few names on, thinking, right, I had nothing. I had no policies, no procedures, nothing. Now I have folders and folders and folders of safeguarding, fire and risk and health and safety. And now I've got a COVID-19 return to studio policy that I'm working on. Anybody wishing to get into teaching, either whether it be for another company or for yourself, always safeguard, not just the student, but yourself. Because I have been very surprised at how quickly a student can turn on you. And suddenly it's like, wow, but one wrong thing said or one wrong thing done, game over. You've got to be able to justify. It's crazy. And I don't expect any of you to care about this, but that's the sort of stuff that goes on. Honestly, I'd say once a month is very normal for me to be dealing with some sort of safeguarding issue. And I'm talking internal, I'm talking external, I'm talking about things that happen between students in class. I mean, the stuff we know that sometimes I wish I didn't know, because I care about my students and I see them come into class knowing what baggage they're bringing with them. And I have to be able to tailor what I say to the group so that I am careful not to push somebody over the edge. It's hard. It's really hard. I still need to master this. I'm learning. I don't know how to switch off. It's actually not funny. I don't know how to turn my brain off. And I honestly thought I was going to have loads of free time, and yet I haven't really had any. And when Emma brings it to my attention and she's like, babe, you do realise for the last 3 days we've not really spoken to each other than work. And I'm like, damn, yeah, she's right. So what I'm going to take away from lockdown is I need to learn that doing nothing is okay, but doing nothing too often wouldn't suit me anyway. So I don't think I'd ever fall into a negative trap of doing nothing. But for me personally, I need to learn it's okay to do nothing, and have a break. It's okay to have a break. Don't get me wrong. I've had a couple of whiskies, and I've had, you know, the 1 or 2 lie-ins till about 7:45 on a morning. You know, I have had my lie-ins, but I'm, if I have a couple of drinks and I feel a bit tipsy, I talk about work. I talk about, oh, what could we do next, and maybe we could do this, and we could open a school in Leeds, and, you know, the agency could develop here, and we could try and employ somebody. And Emma's like, I just want to have a drink. I just want to drink my Desperado. Like, I will always make sure that the person that I am in front of feels like we've known each other for a long time. I try not to put, you know, you don't stand there like a little boy, like, waiting. It's like, oh, how are you doing? You're okay? Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Do you know, it's boiling out there. I was walking up and down trying to find it, and I got to, is it the pub on the corner, the Royal Oak? And I got to the Royal Oak, and you should have seen there was a guy there, and just keeping that flow, because I was once told a tip. It was actually Vinnie Jones that told me this, and then Scott Williams, who also confirmed it when I was working on Redirected, that sometimes they're not necessarily looking for talent. They're looking for someone. They're looking for a star. And I was like, they're looking for a star. He said, whether you're a day player, whether you're in 3 scenes, whether you're the lead, can you hold your SHIT together? And so, for example, if I was to do a press junket, which I actually had to do for Redirected, where they call it the world's media. It wasn't as big as that, but it's the world's media from different countries, loads of photographers, loads of journalists, and I'm sat there thinking, I shouldn't really be here. And they quoted me out of everybody. They quoted what I said to the world's media, because all I just turned around and I said, when I was asked, what was your time like in Lithuania? I just said, Ashte Vermilo, Lithuania. And that means I love you, Lithuania. And as you can imagine, they were like, oh my God, he's learned a little bit of Lithuanian, which, by the way, it was the only Lithuanian I'd learned. But that's how I also got Redirected. Before I went, I Googled a little sentence that said something along the lines of, I really hope you enjoy my audition today. I'd love to work with you. And I just went in, and I didn't memorize it because I didn't know whether I was saying it correctly. And I read it out, and they all started speaking Lithuanian. And then I sort of did my audition piece, which was 10 seconds. And they were just like, the director, Emilius Velzevis, just turned and went, the casting director went, you got the job. I went, oh, no way, nice one. And that was because he knew, he knows how to handle. I didn't buckle under the pressure. I took control of the pressure. Make it memorable by being you, but just a little heightened, highlighted version of you. That's how I've done it. And I haven't always been successful. Honestly, I do want to get back into acting. It's in my bones. I really want my own project to be the thing that I am the lead in. And for anybody that wants to get into making their own films, honestly, it's hard. It's really hard. Aspiration is to get my first feature off the ground, but it's taken me 2 years, 3 years in total to get to this point. It's a nightmare. I'm totally stealing this from somebody, I don't know who. Fall forward. If you're gonna fall, know where you're falling. And you know when like parents say to their kids, like, always have a backup plan because you need something to fall back on. I get it. I know why parents do that. It's a quite logical thing to say, but I'm of the opinion that if you're going to fall, know where you're falling. And if you've got a backup plan, you probably will focus on the backup plan more than you will plan A. Fall forward. VJW has to, by September 21, we could launch it sooner, but we don't think it's, we're just coming out of a pandemic, so we don't think it's now is the right time. but we are going to launch a DJW in-house diploma. And adults will need to do only one level, which would be level 3. Youths, you can start from level 1 all the way to level 3, and that would take you through an entire course with us. I'm very close to completing that. I eventually would like to step back and audit only, so that I would have someone replacing me, including the agency, and all I do is I focus on auditing my staff rather than auditing, teaching the workshops, to make sure that the sessions are of high standard and high value for how I do it. And then once I've stepped back and I can oversee everything, it's to get back into acting and probably produce. But DJW needs this diploma. I try and stand tall, certainly in front of my students, but some of you have seen me shed a little tear from time to time, because I'm only human, and actually I'm a very emotionally in tune human being. I've had my bad days. I really have had my really down days, but on the whole, I have got quite thick skin as well, and I can handle. I'm really good with big pressures. It's the small things that get me. And like dropping a fork on the floor can send me into like, I'm fuming. But then there's a pandemic and I'm like, right, okay, what do I need to do? And I go into like robot mode. I'm okay. I think the future is going to look very different for a while. But I think as creatives, we need to embrace that. And we need to harness the challenges and the changes. Because actually, I think this is how it's going to be looking for a little while. Not just with DJW, but with everybody. I'm still a student. Honestly, like I try and be as honest as I can in the moment, and then I get in my car and I drive off, and it'll play on my mind, and I'm gonna try and remember that, because I feel like I could have given him a more detailed or a more comprehensive answer. It's also taught me. It's also taught me about like people's pace, because just because I know something and I know how I would do it, it doesn't necessarily mean that others are going to follow suit or are going to be able to demonstrate the action that I have asked them to do. And I think it's allowed me to understand people better. Because I sometimes think, why is Emma behaving like that? And as soon as I apply acting to the real world, I can categorize it really quickly and go, oh, she's being aloof or she's being aggressive. And I can use things that I've got in my arsenal with my everyday to-day life. I think teaching is such an organic thing, because I can say the same thing to you that I say to Addison, and Addison might get it and you might not. And that isn't a reflection on me. And it's not a reflection on you, actually. It's just the way it is. And so my job is then to be able to learn how to communicate what it is that I have to say to more people. We laugh, or some of us laugh, at the idea that I do talk a bit too much. I go on and on and on and on. And there's a reason for that. And it's because just because you've got it, it doesn't mean everybody else has. And I am aware of the whole group. You might only be aware of whether you've got it. But when I see someone go, and I think, oh, they haven't got it. So then I say it again, but in a different way. And you're sat there going, he's already said that. So I always do like a 3-tier teaching. I go advanced, intermediate, beginner. So I'll give you the example of what I want. Then I'll break it down so it's easier, and then I'll dilute it furthermore until it's practically water, and I spell it out ABC, and then you all go off and you do with that information as you wish. It's taught me how to communicate better, I think. Unfortunately, though, I feel coming at it from a teacher's perspective, I do sometimes, like, I'm only going to make me famous because it's the most recent thing. When I was on set, I did feel a little bit like a teacher, because I was going absorb, absorb. Absorb. And I don't know whether that put me at a slight disadvantage, if truth be told, because I was a little bit too inside my own head. But after about the second take, I relaxed into it more, and and it worked perfectly. But I do feel like I was a little bit too much in my own head with Make Me Famous, and I was in a bit of teacher mode, just thinking, how can I use this? And I'll give you an example to that, an extension of that. I was watching a documentary the other day about the Japanese cherry blossom, and the Japanese cherry blossom has a lifespan of about 2 weeks. It blooms, it's beautiful for 2 weeks, and then it dies. It's vanished, and then it lays on the ground, and you can walk on it, and it's still beautiful, but it's no longer alive. And I was like, oh wow, I love that as a concept. And I've written a module about it. So everyday things now become, they inspire me to go, how can you portray that from an actor's point of view? And I think it's broadened my understanding of character development. Because if I said to you, think of this character as Cherry Blossom, you might think, what is he talking about? But actually, now that I've told you that, you could go, well, it's only got 2 weeks of life. It's going to be beautiful for 2 weeks. Maybe it's a cancer patient that only has 2 weeks left with their loved ones. And then suddenly I start talking to you about Cherry Blossom, and you go, I've got it. I know exactly what I need to do with that. So I feel like teaching has enabled me to put a microscope at things from a different perspective, which has better educated me, the actor, the other part of me. Does that make sense? And you could say to me, oh, like, I've had a really bad day today, and I go, bad day, right? Let's do a workshop on having a bad day. And then suddenly people start creating all these wonderful and weird things that before you arrived at the class, you were just having a bad day. Now what you're doing is you're dealing with that bad day creatively for a positive outcome and a positive outlet. So I think it's definitely better informed me as an actor to be a teacher. Yeah, most definitely. Do you know, just giving yourself up for the time that you're in the studio. Leave the ego at home and just bring me that rawness to the class. When it becomes about the student, so there's something I'll never ever forget, and it was something that Amir Karangi taught me, my former teacher at Mount View Academy. Was there was this girl who would come into class every day, and she'd say, oh, I've had a really awful weekend, like my mum's really ill, and every time she came in and there was a problem, eventually I switched off. I was like, oh, I'm sick of hearing it. I'm sick of like it being about her. And I'll never forget this one day, this girl who was normally quite chatty came in. She was super quiet. And I knew there was something. And I went over and I was like, are you okay? She was like, I'm not actually, but I'm not in the right frame of mind to talk about it. Now, what that taught me, and this was back at drama school, what that taught me is if you are in a really good space in your life, it's really easy to play down and to play crying and angry and emotional. But if you're really down, the real challenge is playing upbeat, happy and normal. That's true. That's real. That is playing the opposite to the greatest level. And I feel that a good student for me is somebody that turns up and goes, regardless as to how great my life is or how crap my life is, what do you need from me today? And they literally bear all, and they're not afraid to to get dirty, to get their hands dirty. They're not afraid to make themselves look foolish. They're not afraid to look ugly. They're not afraid to, when you spit out the side of your mouth and you feel like a bit of a plonker, like just spit, just get spitting. Like I like the idea that actors just like, you go to work, you come to the classes, you're at work, you're here to explore and to expand. And I just feel a real good student is tabula rasa, and that's they're a blank page. Every week they're a blank page. Tabula rasa.